Good morning and welcome to this initial session of the Utah Driver and Traffic Safety Education Association. My name is Ned Ferris. It is my privilege and honor to host this initial 55-minute long webinar. I've got Brett Robinson along with me from ANSTSE and ANSTSE. And the purpose of our initial session today is to discuss the role of driver education in vehicle technology. Now, as part of my planning and preparation to be with you today to give this presentation, I thought, I probably should check the agenda, the conference agenda that Audra sent out late last week to make sure that the presentation that I'm preparing is the presentation that I am to be giving. Well, it pleases me to notice that the conference agenda shows the title of our session right now to be the role of vehicle technology in driver education. And if you've not joined us by phone, and if you can see our shared screen, you can see that the title of this ANSTSE presentation is the role of driver education in vehicle technology. So either which way, I think the title name, no matter how you view it, I think it goes to illustrate, to underscore the challenges and the joys that await as vehicle technology continues to evolve by each model year. The purpose of our session today is to discuss exactly what role we practitioners in driver education and traffic safety have in as far as vehicle technology. First, a quick overview of what we have going on today. We have all these acronyms and initialisms. You may have heard the acronym ANSTSE before, and that stands for the Association of National Stakeholders in Traffic Safety Education. We're also today looking at new supplemental instructor materials on vehicle technology systems. Very excited about those. We'll talk more about those as the 55 minutes unfold. And like I mentioned, the role of those of us that are practitioners, that are driver education professionals. What exactly are our roles and responsibilities as far as helping our students and their families to understand, embrace, and properly use vehicle technology systems. Along with that, we have concerns about vehicle technologies. We know we do as instructors, if we're being intellectually honest about it. So we're going to acknowledge some of those concerns today, and we're going to discuss and elaborate on some of the many benefits of vehicle technology systems. There's a little piece, in the presentation having to do with the importance of keeping system sensors clean and maintaining them. It's like any other system. It doesn't work as it's designed to unless it's properly cared for. We'll look at the three factors that have to exist in order for us to realize a risk reduction benefit. And then toward the end of our 55 minutes together, we'll wrap things up. There should be some time at the end for some questions, open microphone. We'll see how we're doing on time. My understanding is that you do have the ability to use the Zoom chat function anytime during the presentation. If you wish to ask a question or to comment, I'll be asking you from time to time some questions that you can respond to, please, using the chat function of Zoom. And like I mentioned, we've got Brett Robinson standing by, kind of watching Q&A and chat to make sure that you guys are well taken care of during the session. The Association of National Stakeholders in Traffic Safety Education was formed over a decade ago now, and this was an outgrowth of the Novice Teen Driver Education and Training Administrative Standards, or ANSTSE project that was initiated by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. And speaking of NHTSA, I should express our collective gratitude to NHTSA for its support in money, in spirit, in resources, and time and talent in terms of this entire ANSTSE initiative, because without NHTSA, we really wouldn't be able to be doing what we're doing. So a shout out to the NHTSA crew. The Association of National Stakeholders in Traffic Safety Ed, made up of volunteers, voluntolds maybe, representing national organizations in the United States, all having to do directly with teen traffic safety and essentially the profession that we find ourselves in. And it's what we're looking for is voluntary consensus to identify and support areas of common ground. For example, I think a little bit later on today, someone will talk about how it would be nice if we had some consensus and consistency in terms of what we refer to vehicle technology systems, because right now they vary quite widely by vehicle manufacturer, and I know that NHTSA is involved in trying to standardize and make that a little bit more consistent, a little bit more understandable. In terms of the ANSTSE mission, primarily it's to promote the implementation of the ANSTSE, no small task that. It's to update and to maintain same. And while doing all of that, to identify and make recommendations, to identify strong areas and to identify those areas and opportunities for improvement. Another important mission of ANSTSE is to provide resources, time, talent, treasure, support, and other support to assist in meeting the ANSTSE. As far as who some of the ANSTSE members are, we have AAA Traffic Safety, we have the Association for Driver Education, Rehabilitative Specialists, ADED, and others that you can see displayed on the screen if you're joining us today via the webinar, as opposed to having called in. And we are very grateful for the ANSTSE membership, because without these organizations, it would be difficult, if not impossible, for ANSTSE to fulfill its various roles and missions.
Yeah, Dan Money signed up for the conference this morning.
If you look at the ANSTSE support for driver education, you can see the infographic here on the screen that shows the 5-way partnership between the stakeholders there. You've got the ANSTSE, you've got the ANSTSE activities, a strategic plan of action and execution for moving the goals and initiatives forward. We have instructor training materials, technical assistance for states, no small and unimportant thing there. You have NHTSA state driver education assessments to measure and determine the efficacy or perhaps lack of efficacy in terms of what we're doing inside of our profession and industry. We have the state self-assessment tool and resources to assist in meeting the ANSTSE.
Yeah.
Brett, I think that somebody might be not muted that's not aware. Can you track that down?
He's not going to get convicted because they'll drop it. But
I think I'm hearing a little bit of crosstalk.
Yeah, I'm working on it. Hold on.
In terms of accomplishments, this is ANSTSE sort of tooting its own horn, and rightfully so. You've got the strategic plan, the revisions to the ANSTSE, the ANSTSE website, and here in a minute I'll display the URL for that website so that you can know what that information is, know how to access that as additional go-to resources. Toward the end of our webinar today, there'll be another display of go-to resources that contain website information and things like that. Not only technical assistance to states, but in fact to some 12 states, as a matter of fact, to model instructor training materials and to create model instructor training materials. The discussion about online driver education and training delivery standards. It's possible that you find yourself now in our COVID-19 era doing at least some teaching via a virtual platform, whether it's Zoom or whatever it might happen to be. And also online and virtual presentations and training workshops, not only for the end users of driver education, but what we might be able to do in the virtual realm in terms of conducting instructor training. More accomplishments, more fruits of the ANSTSE labor include guidelines for establishing state driver education advisory boards, the Symposium for State Driver Education Administrators. Again, a goal there would be to create as much consistency as possible, recognizing that driver licensing responsibilities are powers and responsibilities reserved for the states, but also recognizing that more consistency might be better than less in terms of our messaging and our overall effectiveness of our efforts. A teacher training workshop for state and instructor representatives, implementation guide for the ANSTSE, state driver education comparative data fact sheets. So much information. It's ANSTSE.information, www.ANSTSE.info. And as I mentioned, we'll display that URL again a little bit later here toward the end of our time together in this webinar. The project to train driver educators on vehicle technology systems, no small lift there. A supplement to ANSTSE teacher training materials. And there's a pilot test going on now during national, regional, and state conferences, AKA here we are in Utah, and you're participating in a 55-minute long webinar that goes right along with this pilot test. So when we say that there's a pilot test going on, the proof is that you're here today in this webinar. As far as some of the objectives, the ANSTSE training materials, for those of us that are practitioners, having to do with vehicle technology systems, what are some of the goals? What are the objectives? Well, right now, we are pretty sure that as an industry, we don't have all that much information, or we're not very enlightened when it comes to vehicle technology systems. In fact, there are some driver educators that become literally angry at the mere thought that a student might be taught how to use a backup camera as part of an in-car session. So those are some of the challenges. They're the realities and they're understandable, but there's some of the challenges that are being faced in terms of getting those of us that are practitioners with embracing available vehicle technology systems. And not only are we instructors somewhat unenlightened and maybe a little obstinate and stubborn, but we're challenged with helping our students' parents to understand what the vehicles that they own and drive are capable of doing, how to use these vehicle technology systems correctly, and what they're designed to do, what they're not intended to do, and all of that. These are all significant challenges that face us. As you know, if you've even dabbled in working with backup cameras in in-car instruction, do I teach this or do I not? How do I teach it? I don't believe in it. I do believe in it. All that. That's all part of this. And then to assist with helping us driver educators to better understand what the systems are and provide greater familiarity. I know that some instructors will say, well, there's no point in my teaching any of my students how to use any of this vehicle technology stuff because the training vehicle that my car gives me doesn't even have any of this. Well, that might be true for the current training vehicle, but in another model year or two, I think that will no longer be the case. So we have to be ready for this because a year or two will be here before we know it. Some of the deliverables as far as training materials for those of us that are practitioners in driver education, traffic safety, having to do specifically with vehicle technology systems. There are lesson plans being developed, being refined, field tested, and perfected, do I say, to train driver educators. There's a workbook for participants. And as a matter of fact, I myself participated in a pilot test last week, led by Dr. Bill Van Tassel from AAA and Brett Robinson from ANSTSE, who both did masterful jobs of leading those of us participants through a session incorporating that student workbook. So that workbook is well underway and it's looking pretty good from my perspective so far. And then some visuals to support lesson plans. These would be PowerPoint slide images, graphic images, photo images, motion video, and things like that. In fact, we have a couple of pieces of motion video from Andy Pilgrim in our webinar here this morning that we can look at and listen to here shortly that maybe will increase our awareness and understanding of the challenges associated with vehicle technology in driver education. And then some resources for continued personal development. One of the most important aspects, I think, of this webinar and this general content area specifically has to do with the three components that you can see on the screen that appear in color. We have knowledgeable drivers. We have drivers using technology correctly as these systems are designed to perform, and the technology as it's designed has to work. So we have to know what we're doing as drivers. Our students have to know what they're doing as novice drivers. If they're driving a vehicle that has vehicle technology, do they know what the technology is? Do they know how to use it correctly as the manufacturer has designed it to be? And do the technology systems work and do they perform as designed? So the content covers, as you can see there, we're working our way. I think we're in the middle of D2, module D2 in the pilot test. The first module, D1, had to do with driver education and vehicle safety tech. Module D2 is an overview, a general overview, sort of a high view of modern vehicle technology systems, and there are more and more of them all the time. And module D3 speaks to the challenges and joys associated with promoting the safe and effective use of vehicle technology. In the next session this morning here, we can look forward to another presentation from Rich Chittister, and this one, I say another, having to do with vehicle technology, and Rich is going to lead us through a discussion of what technology can and cannot do. And I think you'll find that interesting and beneficial. Fall of 2021 will be here before we know it. That's not even 6 months off at this point, or 6 months or so. But that is the timeline that has been identified by ANSTSE for the delivery of training materials for practitioners having to do with vehicle technology systems, to include the sensing. Here on the screen, you can see an example of automatic emergency braking. That's but one example of one vehicle technology system. And I think that there are probably by now close to 100 total vehicle technology systems. Not all of them are in play yet, but some of them certainly are. As far as where information has come from, boop, there we go. My Car Does What. If you are familiar with that online source, mycardoeswhat.org, then you probably are aware of what a valuable resource that is. If you have not yet explored mycardoeswhat.org, I highly commend it to you, because it is a treasure trove of current up-to-date information having to do with vehicle technology systems, including videos that are short in length, they're interesting, they're rather easily digestible, and I think that they're quite not only useful, but they're pretty interesting too. We have the AAA Foundation, the Traffic Safety Education Foundation, the TSEF, information provided from them, and the AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety, which is the research arm of the American Automobile Association. The AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety is staffed with researchers and data gathering people who look at all kinds of information and issue reports having to do with all aspects of driver training, not the least of which is the effects of vehicle technology. Not so much the effects, but the application of vehicle technology systems. And again, do these systems work as they're designed to, or do they not? And the answer is sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration mentioned NHTSA earlier. Some of the images in this presentation and others come from NHTSA, as well as from Adobe Images. In terms of training material, the high level, the highlights here. The rest of our time together here this morning, we will focus on some segments from the training materials, the ANSTSE training materials that I've already alluded to. And there are more details. There's amplification and elaboration provided in the full 3 to 4 hour training module. But in a relatively short amount of time today here, we don't have time to get into all of that. Just know that that is available in the full length module. Using the chat feature of Zoom, I invite you to think a second about some current vehicle technology systems available in vehicles today, in no particular order of importance, just as they occupy positions in your mind, and feedback to Brett and me as far as what systems come to mind. Current vehicle technology systems.
And please remember to do it in chat, not in Q&A. Q&A should be just for specific questions you want to ask Ned. So
yeah, and I had not really made that super clear. Sorry about that.
Yeah, because they're flying into Q&A now. Let's just do that in chat.
Oh, Andrew says his chat's disabled. Not sure where that might be. A couple of people are struggling with that, evidently.
Okay.
Oh, we got backup camera.
Yep.
Automatic parallel parking. Yes, that is cool and a little weird. Oh, they're saying they're using Q&A because chat's disabled. I see.
Looks like chat might be working now because I saw
Yay.
backup come in.
Yep, from Bev.
Correct. Okay.
Staying in lane vibrations, yes. You know, we were talking about this lane keeping reminder technology system, and one of my students said to me, and I think she was only half kidding, she said, okay, if your seat vibrates, doesn't that mean that some drivers are going to intentionally stray from their lanes so that they get a nice driving experience in their lower back? I said, it wouldn't surprise me if there were some drivers that would do that. But of course, that's another example of a vehicle technology system being used not in a manner that it's designed to be used. We're not trying to drive with cars that have vibrating seats. Well, in terms of what are vehicle safety technologies, these are systems that are engineer science-based, that are built into cars, and the purpose of them is to help prevent, and if not prevent, then to at least reduce the consequences of crashes, meaning fewer crashes, and when those crashes do occur, injuries that are less severe, and of course to reduce the number of fatalities. They generally use onboard vehicle systems that sense and monitor conditions both outside the vehicle and inside the vehicle. And the goal of that sensing is to identify potential hazards, driving hazards, risky situations, and to either warn, in some cases, in some systems, or in other systems cases, to intervene to help either avoid the crash or to mitigate or to reduce the consequences. It's quite high tech. It's quite interesting. Cars are becoming more and more and more like computers with 4 wheels with each model year. You've heard maybe, or maybe you haven't, the acronym ADAS. Now, with ADAS, the Advanced Driver Assistance Systems acronym, this is primarily what we're talking about in terms of systems that have to do with assisting the driver to enhance safety and to reduce risk. For sure, there are technology systems that are built into cars that are creature comfort systems, but that's not what we're necessarily talking about with ADAS. With advanced driver assistance systems, we're talking about systems that are designed to, like I said, to reduce risk and to provide a better, and to some extent to reduce driver workload, but the primary purpose of ADAS is to reduce driving risk. Increasing visibility. Some of these vehicles have the ability to see at night, see through fog, see through heavy rain, and to provide warning systems, like warnings to the driver. And in some cases, as I said, it's for the system to jump in and sort of assist the driver. It cannot be overemphasized, I don't think, that these vehicle technology systems, although as a rule, they're designed to improve safety, reduce risk, and to reduce driver workload, they certainly are not there to replace the driver. And I think that a number of us practitioners, whether we admit it or not, whether we know it or not, might harbor a secret fear that the more technologically savvy these cars become, the less valuable we are as driver educators. And nothing could be further from the truth on that. In fact, I dare say that we driver educators, as long as we're current and we are aware and up to date with what vehicle technology systems are capable of doing and not capable of doing, I would say that we probably are more important now than we ever have been, if that's even possible. Well, these ADAS systems, as I mentioned, with each model year becoming increasingly common and more affordable. As the cost comes down, that means necessarily in the free market that more and more vehicle manufacturers can see their way clear to incorporating more of these vehicle technology systems. We don't have to go back very far at all to remember the days when rear view cameras or backup cameras or whatever you want to call them were this, 22nd century concept, and it was just, it seemed spaceship-like. And now, as of 2019, I think, model 2019, in no small part thanks to NHTSA's initiative backup cameras are now required to be standard equipment in automobiles manufactured for sale and use in the United States. I think some of us are thinking maybe that level 5 autonomy, meaning fully self-driving cars, are closer in our lives than they are. And from what I can tell, level 5 autonomy, fully self-driving cars are probably way farther off in the future than many of us realize, and in some cases, maybe that farther off than some of us want to believe that they are. Again, the challenge here, as I view it, is the driver educator that says, I don't see the point of this. My driver training vehicle that my company provides me, or that my government school or my private school gives me to train students in, doesn't have any of this gadgetry. That may be true for now. But what we may not realize is that our students are members of families that own and drive vehicles that have some of these technology systems and some of these ADAS tech systems. As I said, these systems, ADAS is not meant to replace drivers. This cannot be overemphasized, because a question oftentimes comes up. All right, if there's a wreck and an ADAS was engaged, is the ADAS system designer responsible for that crash? And the answer is absolutely not. No, it is the driver in charge who's responsible for establishing and maintaining control of that vehicle at all times. ADAS is here to help us in that task, not to replace us, but we know how some humans can be. I mentioned that there are a total of, I think last count, something like 95 vehicle technology systems. Not all of them are in play yet, but as years advance, more and more of these systems, I think, will be in play. So what we're focusing on for the here and now is the vehicle systems that are in play now, with more to come. We driver educators, as I mentioned, are more valuable now, I think, than we've ever been. The ADAS is not resulting in less a need for driver education professionals and practitioners. What it does require of us is ongoing, continuing education, because it's hard to keep up with this stuff. And if you've done anything at all with vehicle technology, you know that you could easily devote 30 instructional contact hours with novice drivers with just vehicle technology. There's just so much of it. ADAS training, understanding, enlightenment is key to this. All drivers, those of us that are practitioners, our students, and they're mentoring, supervising licensed drivers. Because unless and until we know what these tech systems are, what they're designed to do, and we know how to use them correctly, then all of this is nice, but it's not particularly useful. And in terms of working with our end users, our students, driver education is not so arguably probably the clearest path for learning about vehicle technology systems. As you know, if you're a practitioner now, and you're active in the classroom, whether a brick and mortar classroom or a virtual classroom or whatever it is, and you're doing a piece of instruction, a unit of instruction on vehicle familiarization, you almost can't help but find yourself saying to your students, raise your hand if you're a member of a family that has this system. Raise your hand if you're a member of a family that has that system. How many of you guys have a family vehicle that can do A, B, C, or D? And the hands go up and they go down. And it's important for us as practitioners to stay current on this. Looking at experienced drivers as opposed to our students who are at the beginning of their driving life, training could be provided through a variety of channels. And here shortly, we'll talk about, well, think about an idea where maybe automobile dealerships could be and should be involved in this training piece. I think it's a pretty clever idea, and we'd be curious to know what you think of it. So in terms of the role of a driver educator in teaching vehicle safety technology systems, our goal is to, first of all, understand ourselves, and then to, by extension, educate drivers so that they better comprehend the intended purpose of these systems, what the benefits are, and the limitations. That's part of Rich's presentation in the next session, where he, as I said, where he's talking about and showing us vehicle technology systems, what they can do, what they're intended to do, but what they also don't always do, even though they're designed to. Another role of us practitioners is to promote the lifelong habit of using these systems, ADAS, effectively and safely and correctly. And again, we see the recurring theme here. Vehicle technology systems are there to assist, not to replace the driver. And I think that there are plenty of people that think that this autonomy is meant to get rid of humans. And no, not at all. So we're identifying different types, really the major categories of technologies available in vehicles today. We know that the driving task is somewhat physical, but mostly it's a mental task, and it's also a social task. So these vehicle technology systems are, the challenge here is to incorporate all three aspects of the driving task: the physical, the mental, and the social. And then again, the importance of effective human interactions with vehicle safety technology systems. You may know yourself, or you might be a person yourself that drives a vehicle that has one or more of these ADAS, and you disable the system because you don't like that when you stray from a lane, the car nags you, and you don't like the chiming. So that's another challenge that we face, is working with people that have vehicles that have these technological capabilities, but then who turn around and ignore them and disable them or turn them off. Another challenge can be when you drive different cars. One car can have these capabilities, another car might not. And if you drive the second car that does not, as though it does, that can be a problem. So there's all kinds of challenges attendant with vehicle technology system. And we have to emphasize the importance of remaining actively engaged in the driving task. We are not passive passengers, no matter how much ADAS we have with us, no matter how much of it is turned on and assisting us at the time. It is still, we're the driver in control, and a driver's number one job, as you know, is to drive the car before all else. If you can use your chat feature, the Zoom chat feature, Brett and I would love to have a little bit of feedback from you as to as many as 3 roles for us practitioners, 3 roles of driver educators for teaching vehicle technology systems. Okay, explaining new safety features to gain and glean information, good. Important for teachers to help students understand what the limitations are, yes. Using the features properly from Jeremiah. Jeremy says to be a facilitator. Yep, supporting families with new technology, yes indeed. Great feedback, thank you. Now, I mentioned that among the benefits are the crash, injury, and fatality reduction. New vehicle safety technology could potentially prevent as many as 40% of crashes. That is significant, significant. And examples here of those types of systems you can see on the screen here if you're joining us via the webinar as opposed to having called in. Lane departure warning, lane keeping assist, blind spot warning, and other systems like that. As many as, setting aside the total number of crashes, and 40% we know is a tremendous reduction. We get excited when crash reductions go down 5%. 40% is huge. But in terms of reducing injuries, almost 40%, 37% of injuries would be prevented when these ADAS systems are used correctly and when they're engaged and used correctly. And then in terms of fatalities, also huge, almost a 30% reduction in traffic crashes would be prevented as a result of these systems. So this is significant. It's exciting. It's important. A lot of information on this particular screen here, but again, this presentation will be available for your consumption after the webinar. I'll show you how to do that later. Statistics can be kind of hard to look at in real time and to kind of process. So just know that we've got this information in here that we can look at. You can look at a little bit later on today, or later on, whenever that is. Again, the three factors that must exist in order for us to enjoy a risk reduction benefit. We have to have knowledgeable drivers. That's where we come in as practitioners, because we help people become knowledgeable drivers. The drivers, once they're knowledgeable, have to be using the technology correctly. And again, as we know, technology that works, that performs as it's designed to perform. Know thy vehicle. We know that one of the probably the least read books in publication is the owner's manual. Well, knowing thy vehicle has always been important, but it's probably, and not so arguably, more important now than it ever has been, because no matter how experienced a driver is, no matter how old she or he is, it's critical that those drivers know all about the vehicle technology systems that are on board in the vehicle that they're driving. Vehicles vary. We know this. So one vehicle may be equipped with a vehicle tech system and another vehicle is not. One vehicle might be, two vehicles could be equipped with a similar technology system, but their owner's manual may refer to them by different names and phrases. Some vehicles, as you know, have very little. My 2013 Toyota Corolla doesn't even have a backup camera. It does have cruise control though. But other than that, not so high tech. But if you were to come forward in that same make and model of a Toyota, which is the Corolla LE, probably to current model year, there's probably all kinds of tech gadgetry in there that I couldn't have imagined in a 2013 car. Yeah, when we think back to the days when anti-lock brakes first appeared on the scene, I dare say, I think I remember myself maybe even being a little bit resistant to embracing it. I think I kind of looked at it like, this is this newfangled stuff. But here we are now. You can't even find a vehicle now that doesn't have anti-lock braking system, never mind only two-wheel anti-lock braking system. So we have shown ourselves that we can, over time, embrace technology and incorporate it into our teaching and training. We have done it with ABS, and we're slowly but surely doing it with backup cameras. And so we've got two examples there to tap into. So I figure that we can use that same template with the other vehicle technology systems, whatever they might be. You would think that you could purchase a vehicle from a dealership, as opposed to Carvana or any of those sorts of things, a face-to-face car dealership. And you would think that the man or woman who sold you that car, I mean, who better, you would think, to teach you what the vehicle can do. But automobile dealership staff, they're not educators. They're salespeople, they're sales professionals, they're marketing pros, but they're not necessarily techies. They're not vehicle technologists. So we think that there's an opportunity for our industry, driver education, to partner with dealerships. If you could imagine a model, for example, where someone purchases a vehicle from a dealership, and as part of that purchase experience, they're given a training voucher by the dealership that they could come to your school and avail themselves of a training, vehicle technology training class. That would be kind of a nice partnership. And student attitudes, knowledge is one thing, performance is another thing, but attitudes are also important, because students have to believe that vehicle technology systems do play a role, but they also have to believe at the same time that they're not there to replace drivers. They're only there to help drivers. And same thing with our industry, with our profession. We're there to help, but we're not there to replace them. Once we finish with a student, it's on to the next. And what they do in their driving life after they finish with our educational experience is largely up to them. But we have to use these vehicle technology systems safely and effectively, and realize increased safety margins. There's safety benefits, but there's also downsides too when these systems do not work as they're designed. We talked about reducing the number and severity of overall crashes, injury, and death. ADAS can assist greatly with reducing human error, and it also can be helpful in helping to ease driver fatigue. And we like to keep things moving, because the highway transportation system is all about moving people and goods from point A to point B safely and efficiently. So another side benefit, you might say, I don't know if it's a side benefit, but another benefit of ADAS working correctly and used properly is for a smoother traffic flow. Using your chat feature, could you give Brett and me some examples of potential benefits of vehicle technology systems? And we just mentioned a couple of them. Are there any others that you can think of? Potential benefits of vehicle technology systems. Saving lives, says Bev. Reduce crashes. Ooh, increased fuel economy. You hadn't talked about that one yet, really. Yes, so that people can stay in their lanes. Yes. Good. And others. What are some of our concerns? Well, we know what our concerns are as driver education professionals. Drivers may not know how to use these systems as they're, as they're designed to be used. They may turn them off altogether. We can become complacent, human nature being what it is. We can maybe kind of become blind or deaf to a chime if it's an audible alert, or if it's a visual alert, we can maybe ignore it, or well, it's just my car nagging me again. We can depend on these systems out of proportion to what they're capable of doing. And for people that are prone to being distracted by shiny objects, we can even allow ourselves to be distracted by vehicle technology systems. And certainly abusing technology for a performance benefit is also something that would be concerning. In your chat feature, what are your top 3 concerns? Give me one. Give me your top concern having to do with vehicle technology systems. Yes, when technology systems go wrong. Oh, there you go. An instructor learning to use the technology correctly oneself. Over-reliance on them. A system malfunction. Yes. Drivers turning too much control to the system over to the system. The driving task, I think this is a...
Welcome to Vehicle Driver Aid Technology Today. I'm Andy Pilgrim. There has been a huge growth in driver aid vehicle technology over the last 30 years, with literally explosive growth over the last decade. Driver aid technology is most effective when aiding drivers who are paying full attention to their driving, but may need a little help once in a while. Here's an important point. You, as an attentive driver, will always be the most important and effective safety aid in your vehicle. It is always the driver who is ultimately responsible for safe vehicle operation.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Andy could have been any more clear about that, but as Andy says, it is the driver that is in control of the car. This is an interesting graphic here. If you look at the concerns and benefits, it could be that the benefits outweigh the concerns, although if you look carefully, you can see that the benefits boxes are bigger than the concerns boxes. But there's a kind of a visual representation of some of the pluses versus the cons, I guess you might say. Talked about the sensors, and it's a 3-part process. These ADAS are designed to, first of all, sense, gather information, and then to process the information gathered, and then acting or not acting. That sounds an awful lot like SEE, search, evaluate, and execute. And sure enough, it is. These vehicle technology systems are using the same process, sensing, processing, and acting or not acting. There are a number of systems in play. Some systems use radar, some systems use LiDAR, other systems use cameras, ultrasound, GPS. There's any number of high-tech ways that the vehicle is capable of gathering information. Once the information has been gathered, then it becomes a matter of processing it, filtering it, calculating what to do or what not to do with the information. And then finally, the system either acts or does not act based on the information gathered and the processing that occurred. The vehicles now have sensors on the front, the back, the sides. More with each model year, there are more and more sensors, more cameras, more transducers that gather and transmit information. It is important. Andy, we're going to look at a video here, another one from Andy that talks about the importance of, as part of a pre-entry walk-around inspection of the car, to make sure that these sensors are available to work as they're designed to work.
I wanted to give a quick physical go around on this particular vehicle, but SUVs, pickup trucks, very similar locations, independent of which vehicle it is. So on the front here, on this particular vehicle, you can't really see there's anything here. Some of the vehicles have some little circles of plastic. There are sensors behind there. Some of these sensors adopt radar, some of them adopt sonar. On the front, it tends to be radar, but bottom line is, if you've got a bit of damage on the front of your vehicle and you do have sensors, you probably want to get it fixed because the sensors may well be damaged. Something to think about. A lot of the vehicles, newer ones now that have something like adaptive cruise control, they will have cameras in here and sensors inside the grille. Make sure, if you've been in a place where there's a lot of bugs, clean the front, obviously clean the car, but make sure you get in here and clean what you think is the camera, because the lens, like anybody with dirty glasses, you've got to be able to see out the sensor. Something to think about. And likewise up here, when you've got a really dirty windshield, this camera cannot see. These are both cameras. You've got to help them out. Make sure the window gets cleaned off, otherwise the sensors may not work. You may have sensors in the side here to do with the blind spot warning. Again, you can look under here. Some of the vehicles have cameras under here. Make sure anything that looks like a camera on your vehicle is cleaned off whenever you clean your car. Here on the back, it's fairly easy to see the backup camera. And so again, keep this clean so that it has a chance to work. This particular vehicle doesn't have the round sensors on the front. It has the sensors there, but manufacturers have changed the design somewhat over the last 5-6 years, so you don't see the circles on the front so much. But here you can see them on the back, and there you go. So that gives you pretty much a quick run through of where you might find some of the sensors. But the biggest and most important thing to you guys is not necessarily how it works, but make sure you keep the glasses clean, right? In other words, clean off those sensors whenever you think you might need to.
Yes, and I've noticed that Andy's videos do an excellent job of not only appealing to those of us.
I wanted to give a quick physical go around on this particular vehicle, but SUVs, pickup trucks, very similar locations, independent of which vehicle it is. So on the front here, on this particular vehicle, you can't really see there's anything here. Some of the vehicles have some little circles of plastic. There are sensors behind there. Some of these sensors adopt radar, some of them adopt sonar. On the front, it tends to be radar, but bottom line is,
I was saying that I think that Andy's videos do a nice job of appealing not only in helping us as driver educators, but you can see that these videos would be well suited to showing to the end users, our students themselves. These sensors and cameras have to be clean and working properly. It's sort of like headlight lenses. They have to be wiped clean of bug juice and road debris and things like that. And these things are pretty sensitive, and so it doesn't take much for a sensor or a camera in order to be covered or obscured in order for a system not to perform as it's designed to. And again, we're reminded of the importance of remaining attentive and engaged in the driving task at all times. The sensors to the front here are meant to detect obstacles and obstructions to the front, depending upon the system what you're talking about. When there's detection indicated, it can warn the driver, it can apply the brakes in some situations, it can automatically adjust and manage speed and or provide steering input. As far as sensors behind, like for example, those used in backup cameras, they can detect obstacles as far away as 8 feet from the back of the vehicle. And in some cases, depending upon the ADAS, it will intervene with braking. For example, if you've got the technology system that assists when backing out of a perpendicular parking space. And then here you can see that we've got it's almost like a 360-degree awareness around the vehicle, front, sides, rear, and they're all working in concert if these things are working as they're designed to work. Let's look at one more video that does a nice job of reminding us of the 3 components knowledgeable drivers, drivers using the technology systems correctly and the stuff that has to work as designed.
Vehicle manufacturers are working hard to develop driver aid technology. This technology will get more effective and consistent over the coming years. But for now, no driver should operate a vehicle as if driver aid technology is 100% effective 100% of the time, because it isn't. The technology is designed to assist a driver in a case where they may be unsighted, distracted, or suddenly in a difficult driving situation. Assist might be the most important word for you to think about. Here is a thought to consider. These days, many drivers are mentally, physically, or visually distracted for most of the time they drive. Distracted drivers don't see or perceive a potentially dangerous driving situation which might be right in front of their vehicle. There is zero excuse for this type of reckless choice, but we know it's too often a sad and tragic reality on our roads these days. The manufacturers are trying to help all drivers be safer by adding driver aid technology. Please don't forget, driver aid technology is designed to be a fail-safe last resort, or possibly a support tool for drivers to use while paying full attention to road conditions and other traffic. However, having driver aid technologies on your vehicle does not take away your responsibility to pay full attention to driving at all times. Manufacturers will continue to develop and refine all of the driver aids they put into our vehicles, but today, when you drive, make sure you drive with full attention and use situational awareness and eye scanning as much as you can. Never choose to drive distracted. It is only a question of when, not if, something could go tragically wrong.
Don't we know that? So in wrapping things up here, the responsibility of those of us driver educators, we talked about how we play a significant role in preparing drivers to use these vehicle technology systems. We have a responsibility to help drivers, not only our students, but their families learn how these vehicle tech systems work, but that's not enough. And in terms of developing effective habits and using these vehicle technology systems. Our industry is probably best prepared out of any industry or business or profession to influence how drivers choose to use or not choose to use their vehicle technology systems. And so I figure we have a responsibility to influence students' attitudes, performance, and knowledge so that they can use these systems the way that they're intended to be. And we have to keep current ourselves. I mentioned earlier in the presentation, in the webinar, that there are some go-to resources. Don't expect you to write down all of these URLs. All of this information will be provided to you later in the presentation. Information again, we thank these organizations and entities for providing us with the information that went into this webinar here this morning. In terms of future content, we're looking at the effectiveness and the reliability of current technology, vehicle statements on technology reliability. Rich Chittister will talk a little bit more about some of these things in the next presentation. Some research from the AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety and other organizations in terms of reliability, or maybe lack thereof, and exploring how some drivers change or don't change their behavior based on the vehicle tech systems that they have on board in their particular vehicle. More technology is coming each model year, whether we know it or not, whether we like it or not. We don't have to agree with it. We don't have to disagree with it. It is our reality. So as long as we're active in this profession, I figure it's a responsibility we have to do the best we reasonably can to stay up to date with these vehicle technology systems. Another important piece of this has to do with driver testing. For example, it's a common comment in these webinars for an instructor to say, well, it's nice that my students have vehicle backup cameras in their vehicles, for example, but the state licensing agency doesn't allow that on testing. So that sort of thing. And then some future action steps. Here is the contact information for the fine folks at ANSTSE. We can take, I think, Brett, maybe a minute or so to close up tie up any loose ends or answer any questions that there might be.
Sure, go ahead and type any questions you have into the Q&A. Click on Q&A and type in a question you have.
And again, there's the ANSTSE website. We revealed that earlier, and I mentioned that we would show it again later. ANSTSE.info. Not any other dot anything else.
Hey. Don't
Yeah,
see
sorry,
any.
we didn't have the full screen capability for the video. I'll fix that for next time, but sorry for the suffering here this morning. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you here today and to share this very exciting information about vehicle technology systems, and wish everybody well. Travel safe.